No one in Red Hollow forgot the night the rancher walked into the Dust Devil's saloon. Because when Silas Crow entered a room, the air itself seemed to pull back like it feared him, and that night the lanterns flickered lower as if they knew something terrible was about to happen. Silas was not just a rancher but a man who owned land, cattle, judges, and secrets, and when he stopped in the center of the saloon and dragged Eliza Monroe forward by the wrist, every conversation died because Eliza was not a drunk or a troublemaker but a schoolteacher who had come west chasing a fresh start after burying many dreams back east. And when Silas accused her loudly, too loudly, of theft and deceit, his voice carried like a verdict before a trial had even begun. No one stood up for her. Not the bartender who knew her name. Not the men who had tipped their hats to her just days before. Because Silas's shadow reached farther than anyone wanted to admit. And what he did next was worse than fists or gunfire. He forced her to the center table and demanded she confess to crimes she had never committed, humiliating her in front of the entire town, twisting lies into truths through sheer power, stripping her of dignity instead of clothes, threatening her future, her safety, her very existence in Red Hollow. And when she refused to speak the words he wanted, he leaned close and whispered something only she could hear, something that drained the color from her face and replaced it with terror so pure it silenced even her screams. The men in the saloon looked away because it was easier than choosing a side, and Silas smiled because he understood something cruel about the West, that silence was the sharpest weapon of all. He left her there broken not in body but in spirit, a warning carved into the night. And as he walked out, boots steady and unhurried, the saloon slowly exhaled, pretending nothing had happened. But Red Hollow would never be the same again, and neither would Eliza Monroe. And if this story already has you holding your breath, remember to subscribe now, because the truth of the Wild West is darker, deeper, and more shocking than legends ever told. And the second chapter will reveal how silence can turn into something far more dangerous than fear. Eliza did not leave Red Hollow the next morning like everyone expected. And that was the first mistake Silas Crow made. Because he believed fear was permanent. But fear can harden into resolve when a person has nothing left to lose. She walked the town with her head held high, scars invisible but heavy, gathering not sympathy but memories, names, half-whispered truths. And one by one the town began to realize that what Silas had done in the saloon was not an isolated cruelty but a pattern, repeated with different victims, buried under threats and money and blood-soaked silence. And when Eliza finally spoke, not screaming, not accusing, but calmly telling her story, the weight of it cracked something open in Red Hollow. Men who had stayed quiet began remembering details they wished they had forgotten. Women who had endured their own humiliation stepped out of the shadows, and the rancher who once seemed untouchable suddenly found his power thinning like smoke in daylight. Silas tried to crush her again, spreading lies, tightening his grip. But the West has a way of turning arrogance into a noose. And when the truth finally came to the surface, it was not justice delivered by a gun but by exposure, by witnesses, by the slow realization that monsters survive only when everyone agrees not to look at them. The saloon where Eliza had been publicly broken became the place where Silas Crow's reputation died. And though the law arrived late, as it always did in the frontier, the damage was already done, because fear had changed sides. Eliza did not become a hero in songs or stories, but she became something far more powerful, a reminder that even in the cruelest corners of the Wild West, silence can be challenged and dignity can be reclaimed. And as Red Hollow moved on, pretending to forget, the lesson remained etched into its wooden walls and dusty streets, waiting for the next generation to either repeat it or finally learn from it. And if stories like this matter to you, stories that reveal the untold truths behind the legends, make sure you subscribe to the channel now, because every week we uncover another Wild West story that history tried to bury. And the next one may be even darker than this.